worked in a lot of different areas in employee benefits and help individuals with saving and investing, but one of the other areas is insurance. That's kind of an important planning item. We all need it, in my opinion, because you never know when you might get sick, might have something really big come up. And so kind of what I thought I'd do today is I have a little handout that I'll just kind of pass around. And this is just kind of some general information. Some of this stuff might be stuff that you guys have already been exposed to. Maybe I'll just send these things around, and whatever's left I'll just take back. But I think it's really important to kind of talk a little bit about what insurance is, how health insurance works, because we all have probably car insurance, house insurance, renter's insurance, depending on if you're renting. Yeah, it's the same handout. I just took some
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just making sure we had enough of them.
Yeah,
so.
It went back to Heidi.
Back in this one too. So, but so what I want to do today is talk predominantly about health insurance. And what I've done on this first page, and this is an open dialogue, so please, if you have a question or think of something, just, this is going to be real casual, real laid back. But what I thought I'd do today is just talk a little bit about how insurance works. And what I've done here on the first page is just kind of put a diagram together. Now this is on health insurance, and we'll talk a little bit about individual health insurance is what you would buy if you wanted to just get a policy for yourself, or if you were married, or for a child, where you're not going through an employer. Then there's also what's called group insurance, where you would get an insurance policy that maybe if you're working somewhere where you buy it through a group plan. And we'll kind of talk about the differences, but predominantly when we look at the examples today, I'm going to talk more about the individual insurance, and we're going to spend a lot of our time on it. The first thing on this diagram, it kind of talks about, it shows a deductible. And what a deductible is on a health insurance plan is that's what you're going to pay before the plan pays. And we'll look at some examples. I even have some examples of costs, so you get an idea of what affects rates, age, demographics. If you use tobacco, those are all factors that affect what the rate's going to be. But in this particular example, I'm showing you if you had a $1,000 deductible, how this works. In this example, if you had a $1,000 deductible and I go in, let's use an example. Let's say I go in and I rupture my appendix. That happens. Could happen to any of us in this room. And I go in, they might, first off, the hospital might charge me 20 grand. It costs a lot. You got to have nurses, you got to have the hospital bed, you got to have anesthesiologists probably come in, you got to have a surgeon. There's just a lot of people that are coming in to take care of you. Even though you might only be in the hospital for a day or two, it could cost $20,000, $25,000. Most insurance, when you have health insurance, you typically are going to have an insurance carrier, an insurance company. And some of the larger ones in the state would be Wellmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, Dakota Care, who's a large insurance company. Both hospital systems, both Levera and Sanford, have their own insurance plans. And those are the four main ones that are out there right now. There's a few other ones, but predominantly you see most people insured with them. But when you go with an insurance company, typically they have a provider network. And if you can go to one of their doctors or use their system, you're going to get a reduction on what they charge you. So we'll use the example. If they bill me $25,000, the provider with my network might only allow $20,000. Now the problem is I'm still responsible for that $20,000, so that's where my plan would kick in. So in this example, my deductible is $1,000. I would pay the first $1,000 of that bill. I'm going to have to be 100% responsible for it. Then I get into what's called co-insurance. You can kind of see the diagram takes you down. And with co-insurance, the way co-insurance works is that means a split, meaning you pay and the insurance pays. It can be, the most common we see is an 80-20, meaning you would pay 20%, the insurance company would pay 80% after the deductible. It could be a 70-30, it could be a 60-40, 50-50. But in this example, it's an 80-20. So an example here is on the next, you would have $1,000 worth of co-insurance. So really what it means is on the next $5,000 after I hit my deductible, I'm responsible for 20% of it, which is another $1,000. After that, then what happens is I've paid all my what's called out-of-pocket. My out-of-pocket is my deductible plus my co-insurance. So in this example, my out-of-pocket would be $2,000. The insurance company picks up the rest of my expenses. So on that $20,000 claim, I pay the first $1,000, which is my deductible. Then on the next $5,000, I'm going to pay 20% of the cost, which is another $1,000. Then after that, from $6,000 all up to $20,000, the insurance, my plan would be paying the rest of the difference. And in that case, if it's a $20,000 claim or a $200,000 claim, my out-of-pocket in that particular example would be $2,000. Now we're going to look at it in a little bit here. The difference, if you want to have lower premiums, what do you naturally need to do? Take on more risk, and you raise your deductible. Now it's always that balancing act on saying, should I be, how much should I pay in premiums versus what can I afford if I have a big claim come up? And that's where it's really important. Nowadays, unfortunately, you see some really big stuff go on. I mean, from back surgeries to heaven-free cancer to transplants. So there's just some really big stuff. Premature babies can be very, very expensive. There's a lot of really big stuff out there going on. And we had Annika was correct before when she talked a little bit about it on with the election. You don't know. There's some new rules and regulations that could change if the candidates follow through with what they're going to say. That there may be changes. My general opinion, this is my opinion, no one else's, is, my opinion is no matter who wins, there's going to be certain aspects of the law that are going to stay in force. Because I think there's some certain good aspects. There's probably some things that arguably should be changed because there's some things that are going to make everyone's costs go up more. So I think it's going to be kind of a balancing act. But my opinion is there's going to be things, no matter who wins, that are going to be, they're going to stay in place. An example for, and this could affect some people in the room, it used to be you had to be a full-time student. Once you're over 19 or over, in order to be on your parents' health insurance plan, you had to be a full-time student. Now, with the current legislation, is you can be on your parents' plan all the way up until age 26 on most policies. On most policies, you can be on your parents' plan, which kind of is nice. So if you're only working, if you're taking part-time school and not full-time, and when you're 23 years old, you're not, you can still stay in mom and dad's plan, assuming their plan allows it. But most plans do allow that now. Not all, but most. You have to find out from them. So I think there's some things that are some really good features and some things that probably possibly need to be changed. But in this example, this is how this works from the deductible and co-insurance. Now there's a few other things. If you had insurance in the past, you probably say, what about, I hear about copays. And what a copay is if some plans have copays, some plans don't. And if you had a copay, and we'll kind of go to the next chart here. And notice I've printed this off, and of course I didn't include the whole booklet, so I wanted to just show, and I put for illustrative purposes only, just as a learning tool, just to kind of have us have some things to talk about. You can have copays. There's office visits, offices of copays. You can have prescription drug copays. And what a copay is where you pay a flat dollar amount to have a service done. So use an example. A real common one is if my plan includes a copay, if I go to the clinic, let's say I go to one of the local clinics, just to walk in the door, they're going to charge me $100 maybe if I didn't have a copay. Even if I had a deductible. If I hadn't hit my deductible, it goes towards my deductible, but I got to pay $100. With a copay, I pay $25 or $30, whatever my copay is. And you can also have copays on prescriptions. So if the first thing I go in for is a prescription drug because I'm stuffed up or have some type of illness and I need an antibiotic, I can pay a copay to get that prescription. So we'll talk more about the prescriptions. But with this particular illustration, it shows, and this is from Blue Cross Blue Shield, it's called the Blue Select Plus. Once again, this is just for illustrative purposes only and for sample use. But this shows from a $1,500 plus to $7,500 plus. And when we ultimately look at the rates, you're going to notice that the most expensive plan is a $1,500 deductible. The least expensive is a $7,500 because you're having more financial responsibility if you take those higher deductibles. Meaning, if I have that ruptured appendix, instead of only paying $2,000 out of pocket, I might be paying $10,500 out of pocket. I'm paying more of the cost because I've taken on a higher deductible. But using this first example, and we're going to use a couple different scenarios. If I wanted to, let's say I'm starting a family, it's myself and my wife, and I said, you know what, I want to have a lower, more modest deductible. The lowest deductible this particular program offers is a $1,500. So in this case, you'd pay the first $1,500. Then it's 80-20, and notice when you work your way down into the co-insurance, it says you pay 20%. Now I talked a little bit about a network.